This is the CNC Router Tips Podcast, episode number 10. This is the CNC Router Tips Podcast, a show which answers one question from you, the listener, about CNC router tables, CNC software, hardware, web hosting, and business. I'll help you get started in your CNC hobby or business and help you cut through the confusion. Welcome to the CNC Router Tips Podcast. This is our 10th episode, and I kind of want to celebrate that because most podcasts never make it past the 7th episode. When I was at the Podcast Movement conference in Fort Worth recently, that was one of the facts that stuck in my mind. And so I thought to celebrate having 10 episodes out there that to you, it may seem that celebrating, reaching our 10th episode might be, kind of trivial or just patting yourself on the back. But to me, it means a lot. I mean, I've seen your reviews come in on iTunes. And by the way, I appreciate those reviews. Keep them coming on iTunes about the show and the things that you say that we do. So I know that this show is having an impact, even though there are only 10 episodes out there so far. I thought we'd do something a little bit different and give you a little something special to think about. And what better way to do that than to focus on one of the people who is using a CNC router table. And he's using the CNC router to create a business for himself. He's not only using the CNC router to build a business, but he's also using it to bring his family closer together. This man is wildly inventive and truly amazing. And it really, one thing that stands out to me about his character, and this says a lot about a man's character, when Hurricane Katrina devastated Louisiana, many people moved away. Well, Sean moved his family back. So sit back and relax while we talk with maker, father, husband, entrepreneur, and Emmy award-winning videographer, Sean Fairburn. I hope you enjoy this. I'm talking with Sean Fairburn, a maker friend of mine. And Sean, tell the folks where you're from.
Originally from Ponchatoula, Louisiana. Spent quite a bit of time in Southern California, working in the movie business for a long time. A little bit of time in Branson, Missouri, touring with a number of shows. And then back to Louisiana after Katrina, which is where I live now, in Slidell, Louisiana.
Okay, fantastic. Now, you were also in the service. Is that correct?
Correct. I was blessed enough to have graduated Marine boot camp and became a Marine back in 1987, and ultimately served for almost 20 years. I was lucky enough to go to Operation Desert Storm and Operation Iraqi Freedom.
And that little trip over to the Middle East ended up bringing you before the eyes of the public. Now, tell us a little bit about your experience with with videography.
Well, I got kind of railroaded into working in production by a very good friend of mine who became a very good friend, who was looking for some extra help pulling gear and pulling cables and getting stuff squared away. I always wanted to be a stuntman. I thought that was going to be a lot more fun. And by the time I got into the Marine Corps didn't have too many people who were skilled in that area. I'd started in sports and doing live entertainment, and when I became a combat camera officer, or a combat cameraman and then a combat camera officer, By the time Desert Storm rolled around, there just were not a whole lot of people qualified to be able to shoot on a battlefield, especially veterans who had had combat experience previous to Operation Iraqi Freedom. So I was really blessed with the specific mission to shoot the war at the beginning of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And that footage that I shot was later used in many, many, many documentaries and television shows and partial feature films and just a wide range of things. And that footage was ultimately appeared on a show that was put up for an Emmy, and it won an Emmy for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Cinematography. So I'm the only Marine to ever win an Emmy for shooting live combat.
That's truly amazing. And by the way, thank you for your service.
You're very welcome, sir.
Now, you and I have been talking for about a year now. As I said at the beginning of this, I'm speaking with my friend Sean Fairburn, and I truly do mean that. You're an amazing maker, and you come from a family of makers. I think that is totally amazing. And initially, you contacted me for help on a project that you were working on. But before we get into that, I'd like you to share a little bit about your family.
Absolutely. Really blessed to have a little, as I affectionately call them, a set of kids. And 4 amazing boys and a beautiful daughter, ranging, my oldest is 19, next son 17, next son 14, and my daughter who's 12, and my youngest son who's 9. And we homeschool them, and Caleb's already graduated and working as an intern with a major company here in Louisiana doing design and engineering. And Joshua has turned into a phenomenal woodworker, turns wood, loves handcrafting stuff, loves the plane, the wood plane, and working old school, without the power tools and stuff like that. But my dad was a machinist, a long time ago, and gave me a love for the things that you can create. I thought it was just fascinating that you could take stuff and take metal and make things out of it, whether it be turned or carved or cut, milled, however it got there. Just it was always a fascination for me. And I loved the area that I grew up in was really big into wood. A lot of lumber mills. The town started as a lumber mill in a lumber town a long time ago. So the craftsmanship, in the area in furniture has always been really, really important. But nobody that I knew of had a CNC machine. It wasn't something that was done. It was all done by hand. It was all done, traditional methodology and traditional woodworking. So it's great to, meet up with other people who are able to use the skill set that you have and others like you to be able to make this stuff go a little bit quicker.
Do you find you ever get any pushback from traditional woodworkers when you mention that you're doing things with CNC?
Not anymore. Now it's really they wish they had one, or they wish they knew how to use one, because everybody realizes the time saving, and everybody realizes the repeatability, and the advantage if you've started with traditional hand tools and you understand bits and you understand what do you want it to look like when you're done. The ability to control your speed rate and feed rate and know what is going to work, how fast can you move the material through, harder material doesn't handle as well, all the usual stuff that takes a while for somebody to learn, a little bit of a learning curve. Most woodworkers already get that. They get, because they work with that every day with their hands anyway. So now they appreciate the speed and repeatability on bigger projects. And if you're only making one-off custom items, CNC doesn't necessarily help you. But if you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 of these, suddenly now this is really, really helpful, and is really just you just don't have the time, and you'll never make the money back with the time without a CNC. And most of them really get that now.
Yeah, it's an economy of scale because you're able to do so many different operations repeatedly that you'd have to use several fixtures and set up by hand, and it gets really confusing, and sometimes it can be a real time waster just switching out, tooling up for different projects, and you don't have that as much with the CNC.
I couldn't agree with you more. I have probably 4 routers that I regularly use, 3 of which are permanently mounted. So I'm not even changing bits out. And as fast as I can go with this one particular piece of furniture that I enjoy making, it takes me 3 days to cut all the parts out. Now, it's not just cut out. It's obviously cut out and round over.
This is by hand as well, right?
By hand. The drilling of the holes, the countersinking, the round over, all of the other little things, the chamfering, every little bit of that, as fast as I can go with templates, is about 3 days. And when I do this on a CNC, it's all done to the same degree without sanding in about 2 hours. So all those parts are just cranked out, and the efficiency is it's obvious. I mean, it's far faster, far more accurate, and far better. And now you put all that extra time into the programming and making sure that the program is as accurate and tight as it can possibly be, because the CNC will follow the program. So if the program's good, you're going to have great parts. If the program's kind of sloppy, you're going to have sloppy parts.
Yeah, and I find that the CNC and the design phase allows you to iterate and to make more complex designs and to experiment with things a lot easier and quicker than you would if you were doing a one-off with hand tools.
Absolutely. What I noticed is when I was making it by hand, I'm now thinking, I'm basically curbing my creativity based on the time that I know it's going to take to make that. And the complexity is much more simplified for the same reason. Once I went to CNC, I started to put in a lot more curves, a lot more corbels, a lot more elements that would have been a bit of a time suck if I had to do it by hand, adding extra holes, adding extra precision holes, rounding over, countersinking, on and on and on. Engraving, I just would not have done that had I done it by hand. So the CNC really offered me a creative expansion that I would not have gone down that road had I had to do it all by hand. I would have been buying so much extra work for myself for no extra cost improvement. I'm not going to be able to get any more money out of it because it's got a little bit more curvaceousness or a little bit more style. So there really was no need to do it. Now I don't even think twice about it. Now how creative can I be? What do I really want it to look like? What do I really want it to do? And the CNC really lets you go there.
One thing that I found interesting and unusual about you, Sean, and your family is that you work together on projects. And a key example is the gaming throne. When I first came in contact with you, this was a project that you had, I think you may have handmade one chair at the time, but it was an idea that was just coming to fruition for you. Talk about, if you will, the process that you and your family went through.
Wow. When you look back at the challenges, when you're trying to come up with something and you're trying to make something, and part of it was I love working with my kids. I made a conscious decision years ago to spend more time with my kids. Now, what that meant was that when we endeavor into something new, like design or computer programming, computer-aided drafting, and the like, I did not want to learn the new program. I wanted my sons to learn the program, and I would guide them and encourage them and do the research. But when it came time to actually watch the tutorials and to physically put your hands on the keyboard and put your hands on the mouse, I knew that if I did this myself, which I've edited, I've done visual effects and graphics and Photoshop and gobs of stuff, and whenever I do that, I go into my own little world and I create my own little product and projects, and I don't involve the kids. And now I'm having to compromise my time with my kids instead of involving them. So I've made a conscious decision. Look, I'm not going to touch this stuff. You're going to touch it, and you're going to be the one that's going to do it, and I'm going to guide you through it. And I'll direct what it is we're going to do and how we're going to do it, but you're going to be the one that's actually going to know the program or learn the program and work with the program directly. So this forces a symbiotic relationship, a mutually symbiotic relationship that I could not imagine how rewarding and how beneficial to our relationship as dad and kids that philosophy has become.
Now, it's funny to me because we've discussed this before, and one of the things that you mentioned was that even at one point you were using every example you could as a learning experience for your kids. And one time, one of your kids got into a little bit of hot water with you, and you set him down to learn Photoshop tutorials.
Yeah, when Caleb was younger, you look at all the traditional methods to kind of create a negative experience so that they get punished, but they get punished in a way that is going to change their attitude or change their activity. And I decided to, instead of it being just something that it's about, I'm going to give you a timeout, I'm going to put you in your room, you're going to be grounded, you're going to get a spanking, or you can't play with your toys, or whatever the thing may be. I said, okay, well, we're going to use this time in a more positive manner. So I told Caleb that when you get in trouble, I'm going to make you're going to watch Photoshop tutorials. And at the time, he was like, "Oh, Dad, I don't want to watch Photoshop tutorials." Okay, well, now that you don't have a choice because you've messed up somewhere, you're going to have to watch Photoshop tutorials. Well, 2-3 times later, now when I would say, "Okay, hey, you're done. You don't have to watch that anymore," he would go, "Dad, I got like 4 more videos I got to watch it, and I'll have this." And so now it was fun. He was learning, and he knew where to go to learn, and he could learn at his own pace. He could back up, do it again.
A fantastic outcome.
Really amazing, because then now he knows more than me in Photoshop because, I knew Photoshop, but I didn't know it inside and out like he did. And now when projects would come up, it was faster for me to just ask him to do it and tell him what I wanted done and guide him than for me to do it or figure out how to do it or go watch a tutorial to learn how to do it. And over the course of time, other programs, Blender and, other animation softwares, we were looking at Maya, and we were looking at Photoshop also carried Premiere Pro. So editing and Adobe Illustrator, After Effects, layers of other things that have their own little discipline. Caleb knew where to go to find the information. And Caleb really took hold of anything that you need to learn is out there, is available. Somebody's going to teach you how to do it, and it's going to be free and it's going to be online. So it really changed his outlook as far as how to learn things, and he became voracious with his learning. The things that he was listening to, watching, and experimenting with were really advanced sort of stuff. And it was very beneficial when it came time to start designing, because, again, I made the choice, look, you're going to do this, I'm not going to do this, and we're going to work together. So that relationship has really paid off for him and for me and for the family, because we spend a whole lot more time together, and we laugh together and we joke together, and we get stuff done together.
You find that the kids are teaching each other?
Oh, absolutely. Joshua took a little bit of a bent in that he wanted to do more hands-on work, but I would still make him design things first before he touched the wood. So as the old saying goes, measure twice, cut once. I would say design it, then design 100 improvements to it before you cut the wood. And that has paid off, tremendously. And at the same time, Nathaniel, who was younger, he was fascinated by his big brother and the things that his brother could do. And Caleb would give assignments to Nathaniel and also make him watch tutorials, and they learned together faster. And now it was fun. It was fun to learn, and it was fun to share. It was fun to challenge one another. It was fun to see how fast they could get stuff done and what one could know that the other one didn't know yet. So when new software would come out, new programs would come out, they were very hungry for that information. And, new software and new stuff's coming out all the time. Mm-hmm. So you're never stuck at any one spot. You really have to continue to learn and continue to sharpen your skills and continue to stay on the ball. Otherwise, your brother's going to pass you up. And each of them have done that.
So you guys all applied all of this just-in-time learning, actually, is what you were doing, learning new skills as you needed them, to your projects. And one project that you did that with was the gaming throne. And we've mentioned it a couple of times in the show so far, but we haven't really talked about the gaming throne. So let's begin with that. Tell us about the what is a gaming throne, and why would someone want one?
Great question. The gaming throne is basically a desk, and it's a desk that incorporates an extremely comfortable seat and chair and environment where your relationship with your computer is designed into the furniture. So instead of a traditional desk and chair where it started as a stationary desk and then people got into doing typing and then got into doing, keyboard work and computer work, the desk and chair relationship hasn't changed since it was a stationary desk. And what I noticed was that when I would work with Caleb and the boys, after a while they would become uncomfortable, especially on tasks that would take, a couple of hours and stuff to do. After a while, you start to get uncomfortable. Once you get uncomfortable, the boys would get distracted. And once they get distracted, now we can't communicate anymore. We lose the ability to communicate as effectively as we once did.
This is when they were sitting at a conventional desk, or?
Correct. Yeah, regular desk and chair, wrists on the edge of the desk, using the keyboard, a lot of shift and command keys, a lot of hot buttons, a lot of keyboard shortcuts with mouse. And after a while, you're at this a long time, and the wrist support, the elbow support, the back and neck support. If your altitude's not right, your armrests are not right, the distance to the keyboard, it becomes fatiguing. And you might not think about it when you sit on it, but it's just like it's like anything. If you hold something even something relatively lightweight, for a long period of time, it's going to get heavy. Well, when you're in an uncomfortable environment, it doesn't take very long, it's going to start to wear on you. And if you have to do this every day, it just gets more and more frustrating. So we designed, I stopped what we were doing. We were making multi-plates. And I said, look, I'm going to design a very comfortable environment that you can be ultra comfortable in. But I'm not just going to design it just for you. I'm going to design it so that we together can collaborate. Because again, that is how I created our little working relationship, is that we're going to work together. And we're going to be doing things in close proximity for long periods of time, days on end. So we stopped, and I started with the most comfortable chair I could find, an Adirondack chair, traditional lawn chair. I could piece one apart. I could look at the design, find improvements, made it taller, made it wider, created shelves on the back and below, and upholstered it, gave it footrests, gave it cup holders, gave it, places to mount cameras and lights and monitors, speakers, microphones, made it ultra, ultra comfortable and adjustable. And that project has just been a blast to work with my boys to create, because in essence, I created it for them.
That one thing that I saw with the gaming throne that was unique and I hadn't seen before was the platforms that you built into the back of the chair, where someone could be standing with another monitor or keyboard in the back and actually working, two people working in the same space, essentially one standing, one sitting.
What was great about that is that monitor was set for me, because Caleb had what we would call the hero monitor right in front of him, nice big, good high resolution. But if I sat behind him and looked over his shoulder in a comfortable place where I'm not really kind of invading his space, I can't see the monitor as effectively. So another monitor in mirror put behind his seat allowed me to have a, reach out and touch it distance to that monitor, and I could watch everything that he's doing. In addition, I would have another mouse plugged into the computer. So at any point in time, he could let go of his mouse. I could grab my mouse and I could say, hey, look, from here to here, let's make this a little longer. Let's make this a little bit more round. Let's change this color. Give me this distance again. Let's make sure this matches over. And I could direct him without touching his monitor, without touching his mouse, and without invading his space. And this really worked. I could also walk in. I didn't have to sit down, and I could see the monitor because it was raised. I didn't have to lean over, and I didn't have to look at his work in an uncomfortable position for me. So that monitor allowed me to work with him and be able to stay comfortable on my end, so I can think about what the next step is. I can think about what I want to ask him to do next. What's the most efficient way to get from here to there? And he doesn't have to abdicate, control by letting his hand off the mouse and leaning out of the way so I could see his monitor, which is what we used to do in the past. It was just a much more comfortable and collaborative relationship, which is really one of the major benefits of why I designed the gaming throne in that relationship, one with your electronics and two with others.
When I first became aware of the gaming throne, you were still in the phase where you were trying to translate it from your hand drawings and into CAD and into CAM to have it manufactured. And one of the things that was interesting to me was the way that you broke the project down. There were numerous parts in this thing. What did you say, about 100 parts, 90 parts, something like that?
We pared it down. We had too many parts. I saw the overwhelming problem with having all of these extra parts, and I started to consolidate. I started to take backseat slats and corbels and build them into parts that they were attached to. So I went from about 125 parts down to below 80 parts. And it did a really, it again, because I knew I was going to end up going to CNC, it allowed me some of that creativity, but it also was a bit of an efficiency. We had 2 different models and 2 different sizes. So we had to create smart parts that could work in both sizes and in both models. So only a few numbers of parts were different to be able to change up the size and change up the model. So again, the beauty of this is every bit of this, I'm doing this with my boys, and they see the reason why. They see what are we doing this for? And as a dad, but also as kind of an instructor, I'm their homeschool teacher as well. Now, let's be real. My wife does like 90% of the work. I just kind of come in and have the fun with the kids. So, the ability to think about it in a logical step-by-step manner, how are we going to manufacture this, was very beneficial. And the ability to get down to sub 90 parts let us be a little bit smarter and more efficient with how we did things.
Yeah. And now one of the things that you did once you achieved this efficiency with the parts was you decided to do a Kickstarter, but you did it differently than just about anyone else I knew. For those of our listeners who don't know what Kickstarter is, it's a crowdfunding website where you can have a project and people choose to support the project by pledging to buy it if you complete it. Now, you use Kickstarter sort of as a testing ground. Could you explain?
I really needed to go through the process, and the ability to get funded, which is the goal of a Kickstarter project, was really not my main priority. I wanted to learn. I wanted to go through the process and learn what works and what doesn't work, and some of those efficiencies. I wanted to hit all the buttons, hit all the pages, go all the way through everything, and so that the next time I do it, I've already been down that road. I've already seen what it takes, how does it set it up, everything about it, and first person, not like reading somebody else's, book on it or blog on it or their take on it. I think that there's just a tremendous value in doing it yourself. And if you don't know how to do it, it's okay. Do it anyway. Learn what not to do so that you don't make the same mistake twice.
I always learn more from my failures than I do from my successes.
Well, when you give yourself permission to fail, you can learn a lot more. You take the pressure off, and it can the second time around, the third time around, if you know going in, hey, I'm gonna do this again, you can get through it. It's like, let's read the book quickly, and then let's go back and read it again slowly, where we know how it's going to end, but we can appreciate the characters better. So similarly, the process of doing a Kickstarter was very valuable to me, so that when I do need to do this again, I can price it appropriately. I can price the rewards appropriately. And when I really, really need that money, I have a pathway to be able to do the marketing, do the research, and do the product development really where it needed to be able to accomplish the goal of getting the extra funding to be able to move the manufacturing forward to fulfill the need of more than just one-off custom pieces.
Now, one of the difficulties that you may have had while you were doing this was that you didn't actually have a CNC machine when you started. How did you get your parts made?
A buddy of mine from Ponchatoula phenomenal woodworker and gentleman who did a lot of craft and cabinetry work. I mean, amazing, amazing work. He had purchased a CNC machine, I think about 6 years prior, and $125,000 machine, went away for training, knew how to work it, but his bread and butter was in cabinets. And I caught him at a slow time of the season and had no real idea. It's like I thought, look, I just give you the DXF files, and in a couple of minutes, we'll be able to just go rock this out and start cutting wood. And he said, no. There's this other little step where we have to tool every single part. We have to tell the machine which bit to use, exactly where it starts, the pathway it goes, all of this additional stuff. And then it was a revelation, like, oh my gosh, we got to go through every single part again and tell it what to do? Yes. Okay, well, that took a whole another dose of time. Once we did that, we got that initial work done, now we can go fast. But again, I had no idea that's what it took to be able to get from the design into the finished part. And even though the CNC's fast, the tooling may take a long time. Mm-hmm. And that's not something that was even on my radar. I had no idea that was the case. But as valuable as it is, once you do it once, you can make modifications and tweaks and move holes or move distances or change things around pretty easily, and then retool that one part without having to, redo the whole thing again. So it was very beneficial to have walked down that road and learn what to do, so that you're smarter the next time. And making those mistakes was critical.
Oh yeah, but then there's the other hidden revelation that you find out when you decide to take this in-house, that all that tooling and all those tool paths don't transfer.
Right.
So you had to do it all over again.
Right. And even if, there's a trustworthiness, and when you're doing it yourself, as my buddy would say, hey, look, you can tool this on your own program, but when it comes over to me, I'm going to retool it and ensure that every choice made of the pathway that this thing is going to pass by the part is going to be appropriate. So I'm just going to make sure that it's done right, and I can't know that until I do it myself. Well, in essence, that's the beauty of having a CNC at home, is you're the one doing it. You're the one investing that time. You're the one that's making sure that it's right. And you're the one that gets the joy and the benefit of seeing it come together, because you know that it was done correctly. That's one of the really, the funnest things about it. You're not having to trust it to somebody else and hope that it all is going to just work out.
When you decided to go forward with this project, a couple of things happened almost randomly out of the blue that really impacted your complete project. One of those things was someone decided to open a makerspace in your town.
I had been praying for a makerspace for about a year prior to this. I had read Makers by Chris Anderson and just really fell in love with the concept of a shared workshop concept. And if you can imagine a gym, like, you sign up and you have a monthly fee and you get to access all the equipment. You can come and work out whenever you want to work out. A makerspace is just like that, except you have access to laser cutters, you have access to 3D printers, CNC machines, vinyl cutting, screen printing, any number of other craft items, to include sewing, paint, brickwork, woodwork, on and on and on. I found this fascinating, and I really wanted my boys to grow beyond what I was capable of getting them into. And I definitely didn't have any of the equipment to be able to spin them up on laser cutting and 3D printing, and I really wanted them to learn that concept. So before the place even opened, I went down, started to spend some time getting to know the guys, and said, "Hey, what can I do to help you out?" And that translated means I'm going to come and I'm going to build things for you and help you at no charge to get you off the ground and to introduce you to, a level of finishing of your furniture, lighting, camera angles. How do we want to put the shelving in on the walls? How do we want to run the power? Blah, blah, blah. Just be an extra hand for them to guide them in a way that they couldn't afford to have hired me, and get them off the ground in a place where it would have taken them longer to be able to do that. And it was a blast for the boys as well, because now, look, hey, here's an example. We can either sit on the sidelines and wait for them to set it up, or we can go be active participants in getting these guys up to speed. And there's a benefit for you in having a project that you can help other people with, and it'll come back to help you when they do open and you have access to all of this great gear.
As a result of the friendships that you developed in the makerspace, you were able to acquire a CNC machine.
Yeah, sitting off in the dusty warehouse with some other gear that just there wasn't any room for it. The owner said, "Hey, I got this CNC Mogul. I haven't used it in a while. You're welcome to it. I mean, I really appreciate the work that you've put in. Take this, take it home, and get your boys on it. It's a great starter. It's not going to cut big old sheets of ply really fast, but you'll definitely be able to learn the X, Y, the Z, how to program, how to tool, how to get the paths done." And at the time, it was one of those, somebody just gave me the keys to the kingdom. And I knew that with the way that my boys and I work, we would really maximize that opportunity. And it didn't take very long, took a couple of weeks. Boys knew what to watch and be able to get what they needed to get learned. Another gentleman came over with a computer program, or a computer, because we didn't have the appropriate connection to it at first. Once that was made, he stayed, showed the boys how to do what they needed to do, and they were off. And they started designing, they started cutting, designing and cutting, and it was great. Right up till the time the motor died. Which happens.
Yeah, it does. So, yeah, I know we're running short on time now, but one thing that always comes up when you talk to folks who are contemplating getting a CNC router table and becoming involved in it is the fear factor that, they won't be able to do this. It's a new technology. It's something they have no idea where to start. And, they're believing that, this might be for someone else, that they can't do it. What advice would you have for them?
Well, I tell the kids this all the time. It can always not work, which is kind of code for it's okay if it doesn't work. It's okay if you try it the first time and it doesn't work. You'll just try it again. And if it doesn't work, you now know what doesn't work. So don't do that again. Try something different. Experiment. Let's walk through the process. Let's, give yourself permission to fail. And once you give yourself permission to fail, where the whole failure is not an option, well, guess what? This is not brain surgery. It's not rocket science. We're not, saving lives. We're just making a little thing move back and forth and up and down. It's not that big a deal. Encourage testing, experimentation, and you just can't learn everything from a book either. You got to actually go do it. Just go, get on it. Take one step at a time. I would say, if you took the time of anything in your life that you feel is valuable, learning how to play guitar, learning how to sail, learning how to surf, even learning how to drive, and went back to the place before you knew how to do it, what would you say to yourself? And at some point, it becomes obvious, like, dude, just stick it out. Go. It'll be awesome. It'll take a little while. You're not going to learn it all overnight, but in a little while, you're going to get a handle on this, and you'll be able to create amazing things. If you can encourage yourself with that, you can do the same thing with CNC.
Oh, yeah. Did you, by any chance, read a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers?
It has been recommended to me. I have yet to read that.
One of the things that he mentions in that book that is kind of interesting is that it takes 10,000 hours to gain a skill, to be the top in that skill set. And he gives example after example where people go out and they start just the way you did with no experience in CNC or whatever application. And they apply themselves over the course of a little while. And before you know it, folks recognize them for their talent because they put in their time. Yeah. And they kept trying when they failed, and they just started over and over again. It's a great lesson to learn. And your kids are learning this at a young age. And I can't wait to see the amazing things that they do in the future because of the attitude that you're helping instill in them.
Yeah, it's great to be able to see now when they run into a problem, they don't come to me anymore. I'll see prototypes made. And I love seeing prototypes made that don't work. Mm-hmm. It's refreshing. I'll see Josh run to the computer and pull up a video of some of the other makers that he really respects and enjoys. Jimmy DiResta, for instance, really amazing maker who covers a tremendous amount of ground, and watching other people solve those problems and what did they do. And that creativity feeds on itself, and it just gets better and better and better and better. And when it's time for you to make a box, you're not just making a box, you're making like a really amazing box. Mm-hmm. You know, dovetail joints and engraved and stylizing the lettering and working up some, just awesome stuff that's far more than just a box. So it's a very powerful tool. As a Marine, I like to say it's a great weapon system because it's a very effective tool in your arsenal of tools. And if you get a handle on it, it'll really unlock and open up some awesome things. And what I love is that they're inexpensive now. It's not $100,000 machine that only guys with big warehouses can use. It's something that, for a couple of $1,000s, you can really have a pretty powerful little piece of gear that can do some awesome, awesome stuff. And to do it with your family, where once the kids learn the XYZ axis and they learn how the parts and the bits move, a lot of the same stuff translates to 3D printing. Same stuff translates to machining of metal and cutting of wood. It's a similar understanding of space and depth and where things need to be taken away or things need to be put in. So 3D machines and CNCs. Once you understand this, now it's enabling. It enables their dreams to be able to come to life. My little man, who's 9, makes his own toys, and the fact that he can, and when he shows me finished products, he doesn't come to me and say, "Hey, Dad, I want you to help me make a blah blah blah." No, he comes finished. And like, "Dad, look what I made." And you look at it and you just go, "Wow, great job, kid. Where'd you get this idea?" And he walks you through the whole process and, "Oh, I did this, I glued this together and I sanded that off and, I cut this and I did this and look what I got." and it's just incredibly encouraging. So I am extremely excited by the things that my kids will teach their kids, and my grandkids are the ones that I'm really going to be blown away by because of this technology at the hands of my kids at the age that they're at right now.
Fantastic. Sean, if our listeners want to find out more about the things that you and your family are doing, where can they go to find you?
Well, I'm on Facebook, obviously, Sean Fairburn, and Gaming Throne is also on Facebook. Mio, M-I-O, 3D, Shooter, S-H-O-T-T-E-R, is the multiplates, and GamingThrone.com is we're about to open an e-commerce on a website, so we'll be able to sell Gaming Thrones and sell the accessories. And guess who built all that? Caleb. Guess who's helping with the photography? Nathaniel and Joshua. So from scratch, my kids are involved at every level at making this stuff happen. And I'm sewing aprons. We're making multiplates. We're designing and making toys. I also get to play Santa at Christmas because I have this long white beard. So I'm going to be making cutting boards with my kids, butcher blocks with my kids. We're going to be making little wooden toys on CNC and working as a family to build all of this kind of stuff so that we can turn around and sell it and, make some money, make some additional income for the family, and to have the enjoyment of helping other people that aren't quite as fortunate enough to be able to make their own toys.
Well, there's a lot of good, kind, giving attitude in you, Sean. You mentioned helping people out, and you've helped me out in so many different ways over the years. And recently, you helped me in a very big way by sending, totally out of the blue, some camera equipment and video equipment because you believed in the videos that I was putting out in the YouTube channel, and you wanted to help me make them better. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing that. I was totally blown away. I never have had anybody do anything quite that extraordinary for me, and I really do appreciate the fact that you did. Thank you.
No problem. It's an honor. There's an additional joy in giving, and there's an additional joy in sharing. And invariably, I've never had a time when I helped somebody with something and two other people didn't come back and help me in a greater way than what I gave to others. So, as the old saying goes, you can't outgive God. So when you are loving and giving and helpful to other people, it will come back to you in a much bigger way. So the pleasure is mine, sir.
All right. Thank you, Sean. We've been talking with Sean Fairburn, the creator and founder of Gaming Throne. If you have any questions, just look in episode 10 on CNC Router Tips podcast, and there will be links in the show notes to information about Sean and his amazing projects. Thank you again, Sean.
Thank you, Bill. Take care.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Sean Fairburn as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. Sean is a truly remarkable individual, and if you know someone who is also a truly remarkable individual that's making lives better through the use of a CNC router, let me know. You can contact me on Twitter at Bill Griggs or on Facebook, or you can go to cncroutertips.com/askme and leave a voice message. I often mention many different types of software during the episodes, and hardware and cutters, and it can get a little confusing. So what I did was I put together a page on my website, cncroutertips.com/resources. And on that page, I list all sorts of resources there, from books to tools to software, all the things that I use that make my CNC experience better and easier. And I hope you'll check it out. So again, it's cncroutertips.com/resources. Now, if you'd like to have your question featured on the air, here's how. Need help? Ask me about your CNC router question on my podcast, the CNC Router Tips Podcast. I'll be glad to help, or try and get you the help you need. I want this podcast to be a fun and personal experience for everyone, and helpful. So let's keep it real and ask sensible questions. Please use common sense and show courtesy to everyone. That way everybody wins. Here are some guidelines to ensure that your question is qualified to be featured on the show. Please keep your questions under 1 minute in length. If it goes a little over that, that's fine, but don't ramble. If you have a website and URL, you're allowed to share it, but only once during the recording. Spammy or disrespectful or deeply private questions will not be considered for the podcast. If you need to ask more than one question, just make each question a separate voicemail. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in and listening to the CNC Router Tips podcast. If you'd like to join our free mailing list, you can go to cncroutertips.com, and there's a link right there on the top of the page which tells you how to do that. Thank you so much, and have a great day.